So, the first thing I would love to talk to you about is I love the action in this series, and I love that every character gets an action moment. For you, what was one of your favorite action scenes to be a part of and why?
I hands down, it was killing a gorilla with a chainsaw. That was one of the moments that when I got the script and the schedule, I marked it on my calendar because I was like, oh my God, I never get to do stuff like this. I never get to do action. I never, I'm always the stoner on the couch or the guy at the computer. So I was super excited about this, gunning down 10 or 11 white supremacist was also a highlight. uh, uh, yeah, there were a lot of moments that were pretty amazing for me, but I gotta say that the gorilla was
Mhm.
probably top of the list.
Absolutely. And after finally seeing the whole show fully, first of all, congratulations. It's such a fun show.
Thank
One
you.
of the most interesting relationships is between you and Peacemaker. What was it
Mm.
like exploring this friendship that goes from having so much animosity in it to one where you guys kind of have this mutual understanding of one another?
It was great. I mean, it was, this was my first time as a series regular since the Sarah Silverman program in 2007. So it's the first time I've been able to play a role that we get to kind of explore, more relationships and more in depth to this person's personality. We saw John Economos in the Suicide Squad, but
Mhm.
it was, that was such a big ensemble that they really had to kind of stick with the quote unquote actual Suicide Squad.
Mhm.
And so John Economos was pretty one dimensional in that movie. So it was actually, so was Peacemaker. He started out as a horrible person and finished as a horrible person. And we never got to explore that. So I think part of the luxury of doing that or doing this as a series was being able to get deeper behind the personalities and the backstories of characters like mine and John's.
Mhm. And another dynamic that was really interested in this show is between Economos and Hardcore, especially since you guys worked together on the Suicide Squad beforehand. So, what was it like coming back with Jennifer and being able to further explore these two characters who started off as minor characters in a huge ensemble film in this much larger format with much larger roles?
Yeah, it was amazing. And I've been friends with Jen for years, and she was in the same boat that I was in with
Mhm.
Suicide Squad. So it was really awesome to see the relationship between these two. And it was, kind of an antagonistic relationship as well. I feel like John Economos is kind of the butt of a lot of people's jokes. And, there was no exception, with, Harcourt and that. But it was great to see Jen get to flex a little bit as well.
Mhm. And one thing I want to touch on, especially since you brought up how Economist has been the butt of a lot of people's jokes in the show,
Yeah.
I didn't expect the finale to give us such an emotional beat on the repeated dye beard joke. I would love to know what it was like to have this joke turn into such a poignant part of your character.
I was so excited that this stupid beard I've had to wear for a couple of years now is paid off. When we started Suicide Squad, James told me to grow the beard out, and when we got to Atlanta to start shooting, he was like, "I think I want you to dye it. I think I want it like to be obviously dyed." But it never paid off in the movie, and I was always kind of bummed because it looked funny, but
Mhm.
when they say cut and everyone goes home for the day, I still have this stupid beard, for 6 months. And it was and it's never addressed in the movie at
Yeah.
all. And then, but also John Economos is an actual character in the comic books, and he does have, a dark brown or black beard. And so we went to Vancouver to shoot this, and he's like, "I want you to dye your beard again." He's like, "This time I want it even more obvious. I want to see roots." And I was just like, "Oh my God, man, this." I have to walk around like this. I have to, FaceTime with my friends like this. And by the time I got to read the final episode, I was like, oh my God, this really has a huge payoff, and an emotional payoff too. And we shot that scene a few different ways. I mean, I remember, the weekend before we shot that, I asked James, I was reading my lines again, and I said, how do you want me to deliver this? And he's like, just learn the lines and say I'm normal. I think he didn't want me to get into my head. And when we were there, I said them normal, and then he just started really digging in and directing, and he's like, Peacemaker is back there, and he can hear you, and you finally have to admit this. And it started getting really super emotional. And there were takes we did where Economos is full on like crying so much that he can barely get the words out, which was interesting and cool. But James was like, at the end of it, he's like, it's your character's pretending to be a guy who's been taken over by a butterfly. I don't think he would be sobbing. So they kind of used a more medium take, which I think was better.
Nice. And looking back at the whole season, was there a favorite episode of yours? And if so, which one and why?
I think it's this last episode, and I think it's for the reason that I finally get to justify dyeing my beard for 2 years. But I loved episode 7, where we're running around in the forest, and it's me and Vigilante and Peacemaker driving around in the cars and shooting guns. I like anything where I get to do stuff that I'm not usually typecast as and doing, like shooting guns or killing. Not many people get cast to kill a gorilla. So those 2 episodes, 5 and 7, were really great. But I'd say episode 8 was my favorite.
Awesome. And with the finale, we saw Leota exposing Task Force X, and your character, John, goes back to Belle Reve. What do you think this means for John?
I don't know. You know what? I honestly don't know what it means. Like, I know that in the comic books, John Economos is the warden of Belle Reve. So I don't know if this means I'm now, in a position as warden, or I'm starting on a road where I will become the warden. So I don't know James' direction with that, but technically, when we did the Suicide Squad, I think we were, our headquarters was at Belle Reve. So that might just be John going back to his old office. I don't know where James plans on going with season 2. I can't wait to talk to him. He's shooting Guardians right now, so we've had very little communication about the new season.
And speaking about the new season, one thing that's been super fun with Peacemaker is all the name drops to some obscure DC characters, and then the Justice League actually shows up at the end, which still kind of shocking.
Yeah.
With season 2, is there a DC character you would absolutely love to be introduced into Peacemaker, whether they're already in the films or not?
I mean, I definitely want to see Batmite. I didn't know that was a real character until I got the script, and James has taken some liberties, and there's been a few people that he's like, no, that's not, like Myrn isn't someone from the comics as far as I know. And so anytime someone like Judo Master would come in, I was like, is this a real character? And he's like, yep. And he likes pulling in the really fringe unknown characters. But I kind of became obsessed with Batmite when he mentioned that, or Kite Man. I would love to see any one of those, any one of the characters that he's mentioned, which now have become canon. I would love to see, in season 2.